Since we're in Florida, I think it's only fitting we start with a Disney joke. So why did Mickey Mouse go to outer space? Oh, that's nice. He's looking for Pluto. I know. Yeah, I'm a little punchy after having flown in from being in Europe all last week, but I was asked by a reporter in Germany if the Space Force would be fighting aliens. Well, I told the reporter not to worry. Aliens would not be coming to our solar system because they read the reviews. Yeah, they're bad. Like, we got 1 star. This is the crowd I thought might get that right out of the gate. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for that kind introduction. Bill's known me for a very long time, so that intro could have gone a lot of different ways. Let me say thanks to the Space Force Association for setting up this inaugural Spacepower conference, a national conference focused on the Space Force. And this is critical. A gathering devoted specifically to the topic of space power and to our service, United States Space Force. Wow. In fact, I got to do this. You guys mind taking a selfie with me? This is too important of an event not to capture. So sound off, let's hear you, let's see you, let's wave something. Oh, yeah, of course. I should have guessed. This will be an important forum where the most important discussions will be had. Key connections will be made and the best ideas will emerge. This audience uniquely understands our problems and is devoted to solving them. It's great to see all the Guardians in the audience today. You are reason number 1 for why the Space Force has been so successful these past 4 whirlwind years. And I thank you for all you've done to make it happen. So let's have one more round of applause for all the Guardians. And certainly looking back, 2023 wasn't just a productive year, it was the start of another chapter of our service's story. Over the next few minutes, you'll see how the Space Force is clearly moving beyond the establishment phase. Our Guardians are now delivering on the investment from the American people to ensure our nation remains the preeminent space power. And it all starts with how we as Guardians get things done. Guardians are problem solvers. They are transforming the Space Force from the service we brought together from various space missions across the Department of Defense into the modern, flexible, and innovative service needed for this new era of great power competition. Over the past few months, I've been working with Guardians from across our organizations to lay out the path for the Space Force of the future, one that is not reliant on the status quo, one that moves beyond legacy systems and processes, one that embraces the full potential of our Guardians, our allies, and our friends and partners in academia and industry. Together, we are forging a purpose-built Space Force, one able to meet the demands of great power competition today and tomorrow. This chapter of transformation is well underway. This past year, the Space Force continued to bolster its warfighting capabilities in the face of increased global threats. Our Guardians rose to the challenge, stood up 9 new units focused on protecting the domain and supporting the joint force. To that end, we activated Space Delta 15 to deliver integrated space battle management, intelligence, C2, and cyber capabilities in support of the National Space Defense Center. Underneath the Delta 15 are 3 subordinate units. The 15th ISR Squadron, which synchronizes and integrates the planning and execution of intelligence capabilities in support of the NSDC. The 15th Cyberspace Squadron, which provides combat-ready forces to secure, monitor, and defend the NSDC's cyber terrain. And the 15th Command and Control Squadron, which provides and operates the NSDC's C2 systems to ensure its readiness for 24/7 operations. Under Space Delta 7, we activated 2 new intelligence squadrons. The 75th ISR Squadron is charged with identifying vulnerabilities of the threat space architectures and developing all-domain targets for validation and weaponeering. The 76th ISR Squadron enables U.S. space superiority and decision advantage by exploiting and fusing intelligence from all sources. And to improve our electronic warfare capabilities, we stood up the 23rd EW Squadron under Space Delta III. This exceptional and talented unit of Guardians is tasked with organizing and training EW forces. And of course, underpinning all of this is our ability to get payloads into space. To ensure that access, we stood up the 645th Cyberspace Squadron under Space Delta VI to guard against disruptions to the Eastern Launch Range from advanced and persistent cyber threats. And lastly, in October of this year, our friends in the Army transferred the Joint Tactical Ground Station Missile Warning Mission to the Space Force. To take on this mission, our Guardians in Space Delta IV reactivated the 5th Space Warning Squadron. And with this transfer, the Space Force has now consolidated all missile warning missions in the DoD under one service. The stand-up of these new units and the readiness of these Guardians in these new roles are crucial in this new era of great power competition. And it is a vivid reminder of the Space Force's commitment to deter our adversaries in the domain. At AFA in September, I outlined an initiative aimed at aligning responsibility, authority, and resources for all aspects of unit readiness, something we call Integrated Mission Deltas. In October, we approved the planning efforts behind the two proofs of concept, one supporting the Precision Navigation Timing Mission Area, and the other supporting Electromagnetic Warfare Mission Area. It has only been 2 months, but thanks to the talent and the hard work of our Guardians, we are already seeing positive results within the organizations, and we're learning lessons that will help us expand the concept to other missions. In parallel, SSC created systems deltas to facilitate authorities across acquisitions for design, test, and fielding to the IMDs, ensuring integration between operations, acquisitions, training, and test between all three field comms. These new constructs have already paid dividends. In early November, a satellite vehicle operated by two SOPs encountered an anomalous event. The integrated ops, engineering, and sustainment pros from the PNT Delta were able to collaborate more rapidly and resolve the issue in half the usual time. With Space Delta III, the 4th EWS operators participated in system regression testing, allowing operators to provide input to the developers directly. They also built upon SPOC and SSC integration by incorporating Space Delta III commander involvement and insight into all weapon system sustainment and programmatic decisions. For some, these sound like small things that we were already being done by the Space Deltas or by SSC. But that's why we stood up the IMDs and the system deltas, to make sure the integration between operations and sustainment was tightly linked. And these small tasks, when added together, will have significant and lasting effects across the missions. And going forward, SPOC and SSC are developing the criteria, processes needed to determine which mission systems should transition to an IMD and which system deltas should be stood up. We'll keep you posted as that process unfolds. And our Guardians have not just stood up new units, they've also built new partnerships, missions in the process. Now, I hope you're all tracking what we did with Victus Nox, which was Latin for conquer the night. I like that. This tactically responsive space program demonstrated our ability to rapidly acquire, build, integrate, and launch a satellite. And note the word that I used there, rapidly. The Victus Nox payload was built and tested in less than 12 months. And it was placed in storage. And on order, it was pulled from storage, flown to Vandenberg, mated to a rocket, and readied for launch in under 60 hours. And it could have stayed in that state for weeks. Then we gave the order to launch. And it was placed into orbit 27 hours later. On orbit, it completed its test and checkout and was ready for operations in 37 hours. Now, if you add all that up, that's 5 days from warehouse to operating on orbit. That's what I call rapid. Go ahead and applaud for that. This is a game changer. The ability to rapidly respond to activity in the space domain is something we only dreamed about years ago, and now our Guardians have proven that it can be a reality, and it is a cost-imposing capability that our adversaries will now need to prepare for. 2023 was also a successful year for our Guardians in service components around the world. Just this past week, we stood up the service component to both EUCOM and AFRICOM, called Space Forces EURAF. And while this was the official beginning of the support relationship, Guardians have a long history supporting those theaters. Space Force EURAF debuted the first ever execution of orbital warfare in EUCOM's premier Tier 1 exercise, Neptune Eagle. They also trained over 1,000 personnel from the Joint Force and 25 European and African nations. Along these same lines, Space Forces Indo-Pacific and Korea are providing regionally tailored operational effects to the combatant command to increase the lethality of the Joint Force and sustain its freedom of maneuver. Guardians from both service components participated in 5 Tier 1 exercises, informing future space component organizational constructs, integrating space into joint operations, and educating the other theater components on what space brings to the fight. Space Forces Korea participated in the maiden U.S. Republic of Korea space engagement talks, and they were even recognized as the runner-up for a Republic of Korea Presidential Unit citation. During Pacific Century 23, Admiral Paparo, the PAC Fleet commander, went out of his way to recognize the importance of space effects during the exercise. In fact, during a decision brief, he stated to the combatant commander, Admiral Aquilino, that, quote, "If space is off plan, then I'm off plan." 2 Navy admirals talking about space. Now, I know there's a joke there somewhere, something like the Captain Kirk reference can finally move from the Space Force back to the Navy where it belongs, but it's just a testament to the level of integration that's been created by these service components and how we've elevated the discourse of how space supports the joint fight. Guardians from U.S. Central Command continue to increase integration with space-related mission partners, with other services, and across the intelligence community. In fact, they executed the first ever CENTCOM Theater Space Forum, addressing how space operations are best planned, executed, commanded, and controlled to deliver effective, efficient, and timely support to combatant commanders. Yet another good example of Guardians taking the initiative, solving problems. So as you see, our Guardians have done a lot this year. This allows us to execute our core functions and secure our nation's interest in, from, and to space. All of this thanks to our talented and dedicated workforce. And even with those success stories, Guardians know we cannot rest on our laurels. We must and will continue to optimize the Space Force for great power competition. And as always, 2024 starts with you. And I'm sure many of you are tracking the Space Force Personnel Management Act that's working its way through the legislative process. It's an innovative, and it's been very well received by Congress. The proposed legislation was designed to meet the unique missions of the Space Force. It creates a new talent management model, one that aligns with generational trends while addressing the complexities of modern life. And what I'm most excited about is that it establishes a flexible employment construct with full and part-time positions, all with the goal of giving Guardians more career options while giving the Space Force continued access to extra capacity and the expertise traditionally resident in part-time positions and people. Now, once approved, we are looking to fully implement this new program as soon as possible, making sure our guidance policies on personnel management are aligned with the Act and that affected personnel have the information they need to make informed decisions. Early next year, we will host a formal ceremony activating the redesigned service component to U.S. Space Command called Space Forces Space. Yep. As Spock did before, it will continue to conduct joint space operations on the combatant command's behalf. And this will allow Spock to focus on readiness and other service responsibilities, while Space Forces Space focus on operations and the needs of U.S. Space Command. I'm eager to see Space Force Space provide U.S. Space Command with focused C2 and the continuous readiness it should expect from the Space Force. The world looks different than it did a decade ago. Certainly the space domain looks far different than when the Space Force stood up almost 4 years ago. And I am constantly amazed every day at the stories I hear about how our Guardians are adapting to meet the challenges head on. That ability to adapt, to evolve, to innovate is inherent to who we are as Guardians. It's part of a space DNA. And as change becomes the only constant in the challenging years ahead, we must redouble our efforts to stay ahead of the curve and embrace this culture of constant change. Our Guardians have always proved they can do it. They prove it every day. And I'd like to take a few minutes to highlight some of the Guardians and give recognition to those who embody our core values: character, commitment, connection, and courage. There's a reason character is the first core value. Without it, the other three values lose their effectiveness. Character, above all, is the bedrock of every Guardian. And I can think of no better example than Sergeant Kendra Walker from the 18th Space Defense Squadron. As a crew chief, she mentored her 9-person crew on the importance of integrity, honesty, and how to be a well-rounded Guardian. She led by example. She demonstrated a strong moral compass for her team, one that guided her to hold others accountable in difficult circumstances. She personally coached her Guardians and showed them how to honor each other while upholding Space Force values. Her actions allowed her subordinates to mature into mindful and caring leaders, fostering an inclusive work environment for her unit. I can think of no higher indication of true character than that. Thank you, Sergeant Walker. Every Guardian takes an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And we are committed to not just serving our nation, but defending the space domain as well. To do this, our nation requires highly skilled Guardians who are committed to constant effort, a growth mindset, and the support of teammates and leaders. Commitment to mastery, more than any other value, keeps our Guardians and our Space Force without peer. First Lieutenant Jonathan Novak's commitment to the 3rd Space Operations Squadron, his fellow Guardians, and his craft is a model within the service. Lieutenant Novak is the chief integrator for a 73-member interagency partnership, all while serving as lead engineer for a top priority mission area. His personal commitment to the Guardian ideal drove him to spearhead an effort to craft the Space Force's first ever space-centric acquisition training. His commitment has also been showcased by his research on resilient space architectures, work that was published in an international aerospace engineering journal. Clearly, Lieutenant Novak's commitment to the Guardian spirit is on display each and every day. Success in the Space Force depends on Guardians freely offering their ideas, asking hard questions, voicing concerns, admitting mistakes, and trusting each other. For them to do this, Guardians must have trust in their leadership and service, to feel like they belong and that their contributions are valued. Connection towards unity is perhaps the most crucial core value in building a successful service. And Master Sergeant Stephen Byrd from the U.S. Space Force's Indo-Pacific is a shining example of connection. Thank you. Master Sergeant Byrd has exemplified the concept of connectivity during his tenure as Superintendent of the Logistics and Communications Directorate. He corrected a number of deficiencies in information technology and communications equipment necessary for the component to attain its full operational potential. Efforts which required him to connect with and collaborate 3 different agencies to secure essential resources. And he also dedicated himself to seamlessly integrating new processes, enhancing areas of weakness, and fostering valuable relationships with installation support agencies. Thank you, Master Sergeant Byrd, for being the epitome of connection for Guardians to emulate. And courage is our last value. Not because it's the least important, but because without it, we cannot live up to the others. Courage enables Guardians to break through barriers, persevere despite adversity, and take on all challenges. Let me tell you about Tech Sergeant Sarek Bercello from Space Force's URAF, and how his courage to be bold led to success in the Space Force. Sergeant Barcello was a non-kinetics duty officer within USAFE Africa, a director of Space Force's staff during the Ukrainian conflict. In the early days of the crisis, he confronted a variety of significant institutional challenges. And that's code for he was told no too many times by people that outranked him. But he had the courage to push back. He took the initiative and led 6 proof of concept exercises that united 9 allied electromagnetic warfare teams and directed crews through 128 hours of operations, earning recognition from the 3-star Joint Commander. Tech Sergeant Barcello, thank you very much. We applaud your drive, your talent, and your courage to stand up and keep pushing even after being told to sit down and stop talking. These core values are not just words on paper, but guiding principles that shape every Guardian's career, and through them, the continued success of the Space Force. I'm honored to share Kendra, Jonathan, Stephen, and Sarek's stories with you all today, and I'm very proud to serve as a Guardian with them. In December 2019, we began a monumental task, one that had not been undertaken for over 70 years, standing up a new military service. Our Guardians have done a lot already in nearly 4 years, and 2023 was a banner year for many of these efforts. But we're not done yet. We have more units being activated, more missions coming online, more personnel interested in being part of the Space Force than ever before. We have the most talented workforce, the most technologically advanced and innovative service on the face of the earth. And we are going to continue to forge a purpose-built Space Force, laser-focused on securing our nation's interests in, from, and to space. So get ready. And my charge to you is twofold. First, here at the conference, go to as many speeches and breakout sessions as you can while you're here, because it will not just make you a better informed Guardian, but it will also make you a better leader and mentor. I encourage you to explore outside your areas of expertise, get uncomfortable and learn, then take what you learn back to your home units and charge them and share that knowledge. And second, let's embrace change. That is the only constant in great power competition. We're going to ask you to do a lot of things in a short period of time. My promise to you is that we're committed to giving you the tools to succeed, the bandwidth you need to innovate, and the support to be the best Guardians you can be. From the entire command team, thank you and your families for your continued service to our nation and the Space Force. We simply could not do it without you. Semper Supra.